Fusion Mobile, quality e-learning experience on the go.
Good day, you're welcome to Fusion Mobile e-learning class. My name is Bolaji. We are here to work on mathematics. And the topic before us today is gradients. What is gradient? Gradient is defined as the rate at which vertical movement changes with horizontal movement. Either it increase or decrease. That is, changes in y over changes in x. Considering graphical method of showing variable of x and y, performing an experiment that involves x and y, where we have y and x. These are our horizontal axis, these are our vertical axis. Considering a straight line, where we have here 2, 4, 6. Here we have 2, 4, 6. How do we find the gradient of this straight line graph? We said changes in y over changes in x are shown that m, which is denoted as gradient, shows here that y, as it's moving straight forward, is changing with x axis. Therefore, how do we find the value of this gradient? Is by this is 0, you consider this is 0 point, the line of origin here. Consider this point, consider this point. Therefore, changes in y in this place, if we should consider this value from here to here, that is, changes in y, where we have y2 minus y1 over s2 minus x1. Where is our y2? This is our y2. This is our y1. This is our s1, and this is our s2. So, gradient, finding gradient from our definitions, which we said that is changes with vertical movement, with horizontal, either increase or decrease. And gradient of a straight line graph is denoted with a symbol m, because if we are performing an experiment that involves y and x, there will be a value that will show the slope of the graph. So the slope of the graph is also called the gradient of the graph. I will give you an example that shows a coordinate or a distance between 2 points. Let's consider this example. Example 1. Find the gradient of the line between point P and Q, where P is 5,3 and Q is equal 7,10. Now, from this question that we want to illustrate, it's telling us that this is a point on a straight line graph, this is another point Q on a straight line graph, and they ask us to find the gradient of the line that lies between P and Q. Now, the first example I gave shows that this is y-axis, this is x-axis, this is point 0. Now, how do we find the gradient between this P and Q on a straight line? Now, from here, the point of us to get the answer is that in line Q, our y2 is this. Why our y1 is this? Because as the line travels, there is changes between P and Q on this straight line, which we are going to show. Then our x2 is this, while our x1 is this. Because the variable consider x-axis. And this is our y1. On the Q, it consider s2 and y2 because this was the first straight line that I first showed. That is, if we move from here, let's assume we move on a straight line, and our point here shows that this is 5. Then our point here shows that this is 7. Then at this point here, where we have this point on the y-axis, and our y2 is 10, our y1 is 3. Now, this point justifies that it lies between P and Q on this straight line. This is our x1, 5, which is being shown here. Our s2, 7, which is being shown here. As the variable travels across a graph, it shows a straight line graph that satisfies an equation of a straight line where you have y equal to mx plus c. Now, how did this satisfy this equation? If you plot a graph of y against x, your hem, which we have shown that our hem is the gradient, then this c is telling us that there's an intercept, that is, there's an intersections between this point here that cuts across the y-axis. So in finding the gradient between 2 points on a straight line graph, we consider the variable that changes and the points that changes, which has proven that these questions obeys this law because y is plotted against x and we have our intercept that occurs at this y-axis. Therefore, our gradient, which is m, is equal to y2 minus y1 over s2 minus s1. M is equal to, what is our y2 from the graph? We have 10 minus, what is our y1? Our y1 is 3, which I've shown here. Then what is our s2? Our s2 is 7 and our s1 is 5. So this is how we show the gradient on a straight line. Then the answer to it is equal to 10 minus 3, which will give us 7, and 7 minus 5, which will give us 2. The gradient of the line is 7 over 2. We can proceed because this is divisible by changing it to a mixed fractions. This is an improper fractions. Therefore, the gradient is equal to 3.5. That is 3 times 2, 6 plus 1, 7 over 2. That is our gradient. That's how to find the gradient between 2 points, P and Q, on a straight line. I'm confident that you have understood the topic, gradient, and the M, that symbolizes the gradient of an equations, where we use y equal to mx plus c, and where we have unraveled an equations that involve 2 points on a straight line, P and Q. Let me give you an example to solve.